So, to all the students, the topic for today is infectious disease and immune disorder. So, I think we should start the session. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is one of the important sessions for your EDIC exams. So what I've done is I have made some questions and especially focusing on some of the high yield topics. That is the topics where from which the EDIC the questions are usually coming from. Okay. So I'll start straight away from the questions. It is just like the EDIC exams. We'll be having type A and type K questions, and then I'll be briefly discussing the answers. And you should also be actively participating in the session by putting your answers in the chat box. Okay, some of the questions are quite easy, and some of them are a little difficult. So it's for all different categories of students who are present in the session. So. So I'm straight away coming to the question. First is the type A question. So type A questions, there'll be only one single correct answer. Okay. So this is how your EDIC exams questions usually are. There are type A and type K. So we can answer in the chat box. Okay. So 65-year-old man present with pneumonia, lactate of 5 millimoles, map of 55 despite fluid resuscitation with an noradrenaline requirement. Blood cultures are sent. What is the next best step? So I'll give you 30 seconds to answer. Only one person has answered. Could you all the others answer, please? I think it's a quite easy and straightforward question. I'm getting two answers. How many are there in the session? I think 8 people are there. Okay, so just like majority of you have answered, the answer is B. Give antibiotics within 1 hour. Fine. So you should all be knowing about the surviving sepsis guidelines. The 2026 surviving sepsis guidelines have again come out. So if anybody could tell me what are the modifications or what are the changes that have been made in the surviving sepsis guidelines 2026? Anyone? Okay, so you all need to read the surviving sepsis guidelines and the newer recommendations. How has it changed from the previous surviving sepsis guidelines? So I'm sure that some questions might come from that for the EDIC exams. Okay, so you can go through it. Some of the things I can tell you, like they have emphasized on something called code sepsis. They're emphasizing on pre-treatment, pre-hospital treatment of sepsis, identifying sepsis early. Okay, the 1 hour sepsis bundle remains unchanged. If anybody could quickly tell me the 1 hour sepsis bundle. No one.
IV fluid of 30 ml per kg.
Okay.
Send the blood culture and give the antibiotics. Measure the lactate. There are 4 things.
Measure the lactate. Yeah.
Lactate.
Okay, okay. And start if the patient is in shock,
Then start
start
noradrenaline
noradrenaline
as first choice vasopressor.
concurrently. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now one change that has come regarding antibiotics. So last question was about antibiotic timings and decision. So what we need to see is whether the patient is actually in sepsis or not. So earlier guidelines they used to mention about QSOFA, this QSOFA score, which helps us in classifying whether the patient is in sepsis or not. But now they have replaced QSOFA and they have recommended other scoring systems like the Mu score and the New score for deciding whether the patient is in sepsis or not. And like the 1 hour sepsis bundle, we need to start antibiotics immediately, that is within 1 hour of recognition. But if the patient is not in shock and we are still not sure whether the patient is in sepsis, so what we can do is we can do a rapid reassessment, whether it is infection or it is a non-infectious cause of the acute illness. And they have extended the antimicrobial therapy duration to within 3 hours. So you can wait for probably 3 hours and you can rapidly assess the patient and confirm whether the patient is having an infection or whether it is not an infection, and then give antibiotics. And this should be done only when shock is absent. Fine. If the patient is in shock, Even if we think that the patient is possibly having a sepsis, we do not wait because the patient is in shock. And as the some of these studies have said that every hour the chances of mortality, there is an increase in mortality by about 7 to 8% if we delay antibiotics. So that's why they again emphasize on administering antimicrobial therapy early. If the patient is in shock, we need to give it within 1 hour. If the patient is not in shock, reassess, uh, try to conclude whether it is the patient is in sepsis or not in sepsis, and then administer antibiotics. Fine. So the next question. So this is related to catheter-related blood infection. So a patient with CVC has fever and blood culture from the CVC has grown, Staphylococcus aureus. So what is your best management? So again, if all of you could quickly put it on in the chat box, quickly put your answers in the chat box. These are all easy questions actually, mainly for discussion. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting answers. Fine. Okay. So here we have again, most of you answered correctly. It is B. We remove the catheter and give IV anti-staphylococcal therapy. Fine. So Staph aureus and Candida are the two organisms or two places where we need to remove the catheter without that. If the patient has catheter-related bloodstream infection, we do not wait. For some other conditions, for some other organisms like certain gram-negative organisms, we can wait if the patient is not in shock. But in case of Staph aureus and for Candida, there is a very high potential for causing endocarditis, distant metastasis. So we do not wait. We remove the catheter. Okay. So this is what. So high risk of metastatic infection. And remember that for Staph aureus infections, we need to always do an echo. We need to confirm whether there are vegetations. If there is a slightest possibility, we need to check for bone metastasis or infections to the bone, the skin and soft tissue, the joints, and even for endophthalmitis. Endophthalmitis is especially important in Candida infections. Okay. But I think that many people do have a habit of replacing CVCs and or at least the HD sheets or CVCs periodically, like say 7 to 14 days. But a CDC recommendation is that do not replace your CVCs, your PICC lines, hemodialysis catheters, or pulmonary arterial catheters to prevent catheter-related infection. So if there is no definite timeline, or so prophylactically or empirically, we do not need to remove these catheters periodically. But if there are any signs of infection, and especially if you have growth of any organisms, especially Staph aureus and Candida, we need to immediately remove these invasive lines.